Imagine a world where I can talk to an AI assistant and ask it to show me where the greatest risk in my portfolio is. I've got 250 positions. Tell me where my greatest expected shortfall is, and how could I set up a hedge to combat that expected shortfall. That's not science fiction, that's something that's going to be deployed within the next few months. What I've seen for a long time are two systems, a pre-trade system and a post-trade system. Pre-trade risk was thought about as limits management and was off one platform. Post-trade risk management about margin calculations was off another platform. The way that advanced engineering is now coming together, that gap between pre and post-trade is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. We're seeing it with transaction cost analysis. Intraday transaction cost analysis, which people didn't think was really relevant or possible, are actually now being demanded from firms. Ultimately, that gap between where my limits are set and where my calculations on what-if analysis is being done, how I run real-time Monte Carlo simulations or regular Monte Carlo simulations to look at what might happen to my risk exposure, is being done because of the advanced engineering, the AI that's available.
How has TT's investment helped Sigma Financial AI and TT?
What we're bringing to TT, new innovative thinking to the deployment of AI and innovation within TT itself. There is a segregation of duties in some respects about what I do, of course, as a founder CEO of Sigma versus what I'm doing for Justin at TT. But there's also a healthy crossover as well. There's a healthy knowledge share about what we're doing, our curious attitude to business growth, our curious attitude to the deployment of AI and how we bring that and TT can leverage that concept. But I have to give credit to TT in the support that TT give us and the discipline and rigor that TT have brought to Sigma. The idea that Justin is on our board now, the corporate governance has improved and strengthened, and of course, I hope that means that that two-way street is working really healthily. For us, the capital injection into the business is fantastic, but also that rigor that I mentioned as well is really, really important. And the use cases. I mean, we know that talking to TT, there's many, many use cases that we can work with them on that then can be led out to the industry as a whole anyway. So it really is a great relationship.
How is Sigma AI helping traders find and access scattered liquidity?
Well, it starts with data, of course, and our system was built from the ground up to be data agnostic. It was built from the ground up to be a streaming system, and that means that it's able to consume that data and expose those areas of liquidity, those areas of new opportunity. Let's bring that and crystallize it into something really concrete. So, for instance, for one of our customers, we put a derived data interface on the front of their raw data, and what we were able to do is in real time show probability of fill, market impact and probability of fill. So it's a real indication of where there is an opportunity, and that's across every ISIN and every contract that's on that venue. So we're talking about thousands of instruments and therefore trying to see trading opportunities. But it goes to the heart of things like IOIs and the RFQ process. So IOI optimization, so I can actually work with my broker if I'm on the buy side to find those liquidity opportunities from those brokers. Who should I be working with? That's really for me where it starts to hit the road and crystallize into actual product.
What safeguards do you use to make sure your AI is accurate and can't be misused?
Some of the features we deployed at the very early days of Sigma, the deployment of agentic concepts, retrieval augmented generated AI at the very beginning. When people were starting to think about that in the context of using large language models or even small language models, they immediately talked about the potential for bias and hallucinations. And we've seen countless examples of that in the industry as the use of LLMs has grown. Our first deployment of agentic and our first agent within that agentic framework was a fact-checking agent. It was, in many respects, seen to try and push back on that concept that there might be a hallucination or bias. In actual fact, it was even more rudimentary in some respects, because what we found was LLMs, and still right now, LLMs are not very good at doing maths. So it was there to make sure that billion and trillion didn't get mixed up, that an EPS of 4 being greater than an EPS of 12 wasn't made a statement. So we were doing those fact checking. So it's that initial starting point around those guardrails. And then, of course, there's things such as AI policies that we help people put together, making sure that there's an ethical aspect of AI. And then finally, I love this last one really is about contextualization. We spent a lot of time with using generative AI techniques to distinguish between Apple as a fruit, Apple as an iPhone, Apple Inc., and Apple as Abbey Road. So how on earth do I know it's Apple Inc. that I'm looking for information and research on? Well, our system looks for that context. One of the hardest ones we had to deal with in many respects was lead. The number of times we fell over in the early deployments of the research system where leadership or leading would be brought up. And actually, I want the price of lead right now. So the techniques we put in place in all of that actually counter some of those contextualization problems as well.
How do you deliver personalized insights to many users without losing accuracy?
It goes to the heart of what a human wants out of a system. And we have to remember that the way that agentic systems, agents on agents, are being deployed means that AI will build the thing right. You know, it will make it robust, it will make the code work. But we still need humans to know what to build and build the right thing. Now, if we get rid of humans in this concept, we lose that accuracy, that relevance. And so humans have got to be involved in the whole research, analytics, and deployment of this capability. And it goes back to that context. What you want is not necessarily what I want in terms of research, is not necessarily what Justin at TT wants. And so our system has to be built in that way, and that really is the crux of it. At the very start, we built a data agnostic streaming platform that is capable of millions and millions of transactions a second and scaling to the level which is world leading. When you want your analytics, you will get your analytics and retain that accuracy. But ultimately, the final point that everybody will always use is if you put rubbish data in, you'll get rubbish information out. So we are nothing better really in some respects than a really good data engineering firm.
How do partnerships, like the one you have with BarChart, help Sigma?
Really is at the heart of our being data agnostic, highly scalable, and streaming. We can therefore deploy not just on-demand research, but event-driven research capabilities, alert-driven. And we can pull together a whole series of data sets that many other firms can't do. BarChart has a phenomenal extent of data that we can tap into through their APIs, a phenomenal set of data. And it's helped us deploy things like sentiment analysis, sentiment indices, and those sentiment indices can sit at the heart of that event-driven or alert-driven capability. So if there's a change in sentiment, we can kick off a research piece for the team at BarChart so that they get that ahead of anybody else in the industry. So it's about timing, about relevance, immediacy, and it's all based on the scalability and streaming of our platform.
Do you expect AI to become fundamental in the next 2 to 3 years?
I don't think there's a defensible business model in agentic alone. We all thought once everybody started to see agents being deployed that was a new, incredible advancement. But as we've seen that technology advance incredibly quickly, agents on agents, the ability to call an agent from a single prompt or from a single word, like a hashtag, agentic structures are not really a purely defensible business model in and of its own right. So where are we focusing? Absolutely on things like trade optimization, on things like risk management and surveillance to support trading and allow people to trade more. We're also seeing 24/5 trading taking place, and therefore, if you're going to be trading through the night, how on earth can you make sure your treasury operations is supporting the desk? AI and advanced engineering are the only ways that can do that. The next step for me, John, is AI inference. So now we've got this concept of agents on agents, an ability to call an agent with a single hashtag the next evolution is making sure that data contextualization takes place so that I can use AI inference to look at that data for a trader and then come up with trade optimization and new trading ideas in different liquidity frameworks that they hadn't actually thought about. And that is the new world that we're going to see, not from sort of, another 10 years. From next year, we're seeing the difference in the model training compute requirements start to be overtaken by the by the compute requirements for contextualization of data. That is telling me that AI inference is on its way and will be a really key theme in trading to come through the next couple of years.